Welcome to the Boneyard with Steve Robertson. As always, I am your good friend and host, Steve Robertson, here on the Maroon Friday edition of the Yard. That's right. Let me just go ahead and break it down for you. 17 days till Christmas. 17 days. So if you are not prepared, it is time to get prepared. It feels like the month is just flying by. And it's been a busy stretch for us over at genespage.com. Covering this coaching search and then filling out the staff and working through recruits. We got official visit weekend this weekend. We'll preview that a little bit later in the show. Made a couple new hires that haven't been officially announced, but we'll cover those as well. But it's time to get cracking. I mean, it really is. It is time to get rolling. And if you're looking to do some shopping over in the greater Tupelo area, they'll be getting stocked today on When the Bottom Falls there at Gumtree Books. Yeah, that's some requests. So we'll get that taken care of today, from what I understand. And then some book signings coming up next Friday at noon. I will be at Lemuria Books in Jackson, Mississippi at noon next Friday. And then 1 to 3 that Saturday, I'll be at Campus Book Marts. If you're coming to town for basketball, you can swing by and get some books signed, making it easier. And I said it many times before, every Mississippi State fan needs to have a copy of Dogpile. Whether you're a big reader or not, you should have that. Yeah, I don't know how many more national championships we're gonna win, but don't you want to have the story of the first one? Yeah, you do. And every smart aleck brother-in-law or friend at the office or whatever needs a copy of Flim Flam. You can get signed copies at go to whenthebottomfalls.com, and of course the new book and all of my sports books are there. And already doing research for the next one. We'll get, once we get through the holidays, once we get through Christmas, the writing process will begin on the biography of Dudy Noble. And that's the person, not the stadium. We'll talk about a stadium some. I've had a lot of people reach out and want to send me their memories of Dudy Noble Field. And while that may be fun, that's not the focus of this book. This book is going to be called The Dude, or The Dude, The Life and Times of Dudy Noble, the person, one of the most impactful people in the history of Mississippi State athletics. Spent some time with his nieces earlier this week. Got some great anecdotal information. Got some family history. I've done my research. I'm not done with it, but we've got a lot of stuff. Of course, by the time we get to Christmas, I want to have a lot of these interviews done so we can start constructing this. And the hope is to have it out late summer and certainly in time for football season. So we'll do a bunch of book signings next year on game day and things of that nature. That's the plan anyway. I mean, you never know what life's going to afford you, but that's the plan for 2024 is to have the book, The Dude, on sale in time for next football season as we open up the Jeff Lebby era. Let's thank our friends at Bulldog Burger Company, longtime sponsors of the show. Man, I love Bulldog Burger Company. I've loved them since first bite. It's true. Matter of fact, Brian Haydad and I went together to Bulldog Burger Company for the first time. We had to go try it out, and we went, and it was amazing. Little did I know they'd become a sponsor of the show and stick with us all these years. What a great marriage it's been. I'm very faithful to Bulldog Burger Company. I am. When I want a great restaurant quality hamburger, there's no decision process. I know exactly where I'm going to go. Bulldog Burger Company. Love that group. Love everybody involved with it. And the main thing, here's the thing. The reason you go to a restaurant is to have a dining experience. There are a lot of places you can just go eat. But when you go to Bulldog Burger Company, it's an experience. You can get an adult beverage, maybe get a glass of wine. Maybe you need a cold one after a long day's work. And you can do that a lot of places. But you can do that at Bulldog Burger Company. Have a night out with friends, a night out with family, and get that great restaurant quality hamburger. I like the onion rings there too, which is kind of weird that I'm an anti-onion person, but I do like onion rings. Again, I'm a riddle wrapped inside of an enigma. But you go find your own favorites. I love that Mississippi barbecue burger. I think it's fabulous. The Bryant's really good. The Lauren's good. I've had them all, and I've always come away feeling satisfied and nourished. But that's the reason you go, right? It's not just the fact that you want to go eat. You want to have an experience, and you can have that at Bulldog Burger Company. You get that chocolate shake to go, perhaps that bread pudding. You cap the experience off by satisfying that sweet tooth of yours. 3 great locations to serve you. University Drive here in Stark Vegas, Gloucester Street there in Tupelo, Lake Harper Drive in the Ridge and Flowood area. I tell you, you can go a lot of places to have lunch or dinner. But the bottom line is this. You can't find a place better than Bulldog Burger Company. The place where people go to meet. M-E-A-T. All right. So we got tipped off last night. Mississippi State made a couple of hires. Let's start with the king of speed. Former Oregon Director of Speed and Performance, Jarwoski Beckham, is coming home to Mississippi State. Pretty incredible. Absolutely incredible situation here. This is one of these situations where a lot of people have wanted this to happen for a long time. You have a director of speed and performance, right? Of course, that all is under the same umbrella of strength and conditioning, and Shad Williams from Oregon recently announced as your new strength and conditioning coach for football. So it makes sense to have not only a guy that knows Mississippi State, a guy that understands what it's like to be a Bulldog, but now he's going to be working in conjunction with somebody that he's had a relationship with. Very, very excited about this. And if you can tell by the social media traffic when I broke that news yesterday, last time I looked, it was like 200,000 impressions. People understand this. And then, of course, the Oregon media picks it up and they confirm our report. The Jaws is coming home. Absolutely love this move. That's the thing, too. When you bring in a new coach, they're going to hire a lot of people that know them and that they know, and that's how we would all do it too, right? And that's exactly what Jeff Lebby's done for the most part, is he's hired people that he knows and has a relationship with. To me, that makes perfect sense. But in addition to that, he's brought in somebody that knows us well. Now, Shad Williams, you may not know this, but Shad Williams, he also played at Andrews High School, same high school as Jeff Lebby. So they kind of grew up with the same value system and the same educational system. And listen, this is again, a relationship. And as a result of that, this is a perfect marriage in that respect, that we're bringing Jarwoski Beckham home. Incredible. Give you a quick snapshot of his career, and this comes from Oregon. But he's a graduate of Mississippi State and went to Alabama. Eventually earned the assistant strength coach role there. And not just involved in football, but women's basketball and softball. So a little bit of everything. And from Alabama, he went to Grambling State, stayed there for 3 years. He was the director of strength and conditioning there. In the years that he was there, the football team went 20-3 in the final 2 seasons, even undefeated in conference play. And they won the HBCU National Championship. He left there and went to Nevada. And at Nevada, he ended up working with Mason Miller, former Mississippi State offensive line coach, Mason Miller. How about that? Yeah. Left Nevada, went to Ole Miss, spent some time there, and landed at Oregon with Coach Dan Lanning and his staff. And here's a quote from Dan Lanning from the Oregon website. "We're thrilled to have Jarwoski Beckham join us here at Oregon. He's a tremendous addition to our staff and strength and conditioning staff. His experience working with Wilson Love the past 2 years will really allow him to hit the ground running here in Eugene. Coach Jaws has done it all in the weight room, but truly specializes in speed training and development. I'm fired up to welcome Jarwoski, his wife Davida, and their 2 children, DJ and London, to the Duck family." Well, Dan, we love you, but we just had him on loan to you. It's time for him to bring him home. Beckham's comments about his appointment at Oregon: "I want to thank Coach Lanning, Coach Love, and the University of Oregon administration for this incredible opportunity. When you think of speed in college football, you think of the Oregon Ducks. I couldn't be more excited about the opportunity to play a role in continuing that tradition. I can't wait to get to work with our elite student athletes and the terrific staff Coach Lanning has assembled in Eugene. Go Ducks." And, of course, the Ducks played for the Pac-12 championship just last weekend. When I began to work through this myself, I began to think about the Oregon Ducks, one of the fastest teams in all of college football. And if you begin to talk to people, in coaching circles, because we got wind this may be happening. And of course, Jaws and those guys connected to a lot of people at Mississippi State. Obviously, he's an alum. So we had a lot of people coming to our board and say, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen. So we start digging around, and start talking to some of our friends in coaching circles. And their reaction is kind of like, wow, that's really big for Mississippi State and Jeff Lebby. And it is. We always talk about getting bigger, faster, stronger. And some people think, well, you just put them in the weight room and turn them loose, and just naturally they'll get bigger, faster, stronger. That's not necessarily the case. You've got to, number one, understand technique. It doesn't matter if you're a 5K runner, a marathoner, or whatever. I mean, if you want to be more efficient, you've got to learn proper running technique. There are exercises you can do to better your form as a runner. And I just don't know that we've had that before. All due respect to everybody that's been here before, we've never had anybody that has, number one, had a connection to Mississippi State and then gone out into the mission field and kind of learned some lessons. And working with the Oregon and Nike, I'm sure they've had state-of-the-art equipment there. But then take that knowledge and bring it back to Starkville. This is huge. I cannot overstate how big this is for Mississippi State football. That's one of the reasons I led with it. And it's not just the fact that I've always known who this person was, but I know so many people that have worked with Jaws, and they'll tell you, dude, you don't understand what he's fixing to do. You don't get it. You think you know, but you don't. He's about to make Mississippi State a much faster football team. And in the offense that we want to run, we better have some people that can get some distance between those and the guys that are defending them. So this is huge. I won't sit here and say it's the best or biggest hire of the staff, but it's among them. This is absolutely tremendous. So we won't belabor the point. I just want to make sure you guys get it, because the casual fan is going to see, it's just not a strength and conditioning coach. No, it's not. It's the king of speed, who just so happens to be a Mississippi State alum that is coming home to the school and place that he loves and going to use his expertise now to make us a better football program. How about that? All right, now we expect Mississippi State to have an announcement later today. Corey Bell, legendary coach in the state of Florida. He worked most recently as the defensive passing game coordinator at Florida Atlantic. His first year there. Spent some time there before off the field. But this is a guy, too, that knows South Florida extensively. He's also a guy that worked with Jeff Lebby for a couple of years at Central Florida. So once again, Jeff Lebby going back into his past to identify people that he is comfortable with and has had a working relationship with. Prior to working at Florida Atlantic, Bell was the corners coach at FIU. Before that, he was at Florida for a while off the field, and then earlier had some time on the field. Of course, corners coach at Central Florida. Worked at South Florida, again back to Florida Atlantic. But he is a guy that has been around. A lot of off-the-field stuff, but a lot of on-the-field stuff as well. So a good combination there. Some time as an analyst, director of personnel, things of that nature. And has been a part of several teams that have won big games. Earned his college degree at South Carolina back in 1995, so he's somewhat familiar with the Southeastern Conference, or at least our region. Got a master's degree in social studies and education. And he's just a few months older than me. And Corey, all due respect, I think when we look at our pictures, I look a little bit younger. But all that said, one step closer to getting this thing done. I think it's important to understand, too, that we can look at a snapshot of somebody's career, but this is a guy that's kind of a South Florida legend in many respects. It's a guy that's widely known, and maybe will give us the opportunity to expand the recruiting footprint a little bit. When Arnett came in, I kind of supported that. And here's the thing, too. Whenever we spread ourselves a little bit too thin on the recruiting trail, we have a tendency to lose kids in state. Now, I want to focus on Mississippi kids first, but whenever the in-state crop is somewhat deficient at some positions, we got to be able to stretch our legs a little bit. And I think Corey Bell gives us a chance to do that. Give us a chance to get involved with some players out in Florida, which in many respects is kind of an under-recruited area for us. But there's so many schools you have to pass on your way to Starkville. We've kind of learned that. I remember the Guy Holiday doctrine that we adopted. We went out and just had Guy go recruit nationally, and we go offer all these kids up in Indianapolis, and we go out to L.A., and I think in the end we got one linebacker that ended up transferring, Jimmy Miller, to UNLV. Got a walk-on quarterback from Compton. We spent a lot of gas money and a lot of windshield time and didn't get much from it. The times have changed a lot. It's been nearly 20 years. But you remember the old Kenny Ashley debacle where he set the sign with us, and on the very end of the process, he flips to USC. And then didn't do a lot there. But yeah, it makes sense for us to recruit the South. And of course, having somebody that's got a ton of connections down in Florida is big. Of course, Jeff Lebby coached down there too. I mean, it's not a virgin territory for us, but it helps to have somebody that has relationships there. And we're not just showing up with the interlocking MSU and saying, hey, look how cool this is, right? It's a much different deal. So now what we have is one spot left on defense. And so, and maybe special teams. So it's just one more spot left. Now, to kind of give you some clarity here, Coleman Hutzler is going to be your defensive coordinator. And he's going to coach inside backers. And that could change depending on who the candidates are, because Hutzler has coached linebacker and played linebacker. He understands linebacking, right? And so it's important that that's the decision now, that he'll coach inside backers, which means we'll likely add an outside backers coach, which makes me think maybe we're going to run some 3-4 concepts. Maybe. I understand we're going to be multiple. But Matt Barnes, of course, said former DC at Memphis, is going to be your co-DC and going to coach your safeties. Bell will coach your corners. And the fact that Hutzler and Barnes have some extensive experience with special teams, they'll get together and kind of figure that thing out. Now, we may have a full-time special teams coordinator that also coaches outside backers, I guess, which kind of flies in the face of calling it full-time. But it's going to depend on who that person is, right? When are they hired? I don't know. But we're one vacancy away from having Jeff Lebby's first staff filled out. Now, a lot of people have come out and said, well, Steve, I don't know about this. I don't know about that. And that's the thing. It doesn't matter what we all think. It's true. Because we're going to show up and we're going to support this team. And as long as they win, that's all we're going to be concerned about. And the thing that I've learned about this, it doesn't matter who we would have hired as a defensive coordinator. There was going to be some level of criticism, right? We joked about this when we hired Jeff Lebby. We could have hired Nick Saban, and half our fan base would say, hey, he's over the hill. That's all part of the deal too. And so what I would just encourage you is have a little patience here. Now, I thought Coleman Hutzler was a interesting pick as defensive coordinator, but I don't know him. I know I look at his background and see that he's coached extensively linebackers in the Southeastern Conference, and we talk a lot about play calling. Well, how involved has he been with play calling? When he was the co-DC at Texas, was he the primary play caller or not? I don't know. But here's one thing I will tell you. Zach Arnett had never called a play in his life until he showed up at Mississippi State, and we went down to LSU and beat the defending national champion LSU Tigers in their own backyard. That's the first game in Zach Arnett's career that he called plays. Before Rocky Long handled all that stuff. Now, of course, Zach, great pedigree, learned from one of the best coaches in the history of the game. So that's important. I just wanted that nugget to be out there because a lot of people are like, hey, but there's this and there's that. Zach Arnett had never called a play until that day. And there was some ebb and flow with Zach, but I thought Zach did a good job. And there's some big games out there Zach did exceptionally well. Offense didn't hold up their end of the deal. I'm still a Zach Arnett fan, and I wish him that guy the best. But I wanted to make sure that we understand that aspect of it. You got guys, and let's be honest, Coleman Hutzler's been around the game longer than Zach has. And many of you wanted Zach to stay on and be the defensive coordinator, right? How awkward would that have been? But, so Hutzler's your DC. And, when we began, I got the tip about this time last week, I guess it was Thursday night or Friday morning, that one of the candidates Mississippi State was pursuing was coaching the game on Saturday. And I went through every single one of those teams that was playing, and the only two connections that I found were Randy Shannon and Coleman Hutzler. And I thought, well, Coleman Hutzler's special teams coordinator at Alabama. He's not going to leave Alabama to go to Mississippi State for the same position. And turns out that that's true. He's coming as your defensive coordinator. So I just think it's time to get behind these guys and let's go. Let's go. Let's go. We have had so many things to complain about and worry about. And when we haven't had things to complain about, we've manufactured some, And I'm so ready for a sense of normalcy when it comes to Mississippi State football. I know you guys probably feel the same way. I just want to get excited and be able to go to Davis Wade Stadium and know that we have a chance to win every game. I want to go through recruiting and feel like, hey, I don't have to worry about this. I don't have to worry about a coach leaving. And to be honest with you, I think our off-the-field staff has done a tremendous job kind of keeping this class at bay, and most of them will be officially visiting this weekend. And again, that's going to be a little bit later in the show. We'll kind of preview the official visit weekend. But I'm not going to sit here and pick this thing apart. I begin to think about how I would do this. What if somebody said, hey, you, John Q. Bulldog, you're the new head coach at Mississippi State. And here's the budget you have with which to work with to go put a staff together. Where would you start? Well, the first thing you're going to do is make the obvious hires first. You're going to hire the people that can build an infrastructure around you. You're going to hire your inner circle. You're going to hire people that know how you do things. Because you don't want to have to hit the ground running and teach everybody everything. You want to be like, hey, I got to get out here and be a head coach for the first time. I got to surround myself with people that understand how I do things, what my expectations are. And that's what Jeff Lebby's done. He's gone out and hired people that he knows and trusts and understands will do a good job for him. And you know what? We went through all this before. I go back to the whole Dan Mullen staff, and people forget the university had to be involved. The athletic department had to be involved putting that staff together. That just hadn't been the case for Jeff Lebby. Jeff's gone out and hired people. And that's one of the things, too. There's so many people out there, over drinks one night or lunch one day on a recruiting trail. Hey, man, if you ever get a job, I'd love to be on your staff. It's easy to say that in passing. But to get people to leave other programs to come here sometimes can prove to be very difficult. All of a sudden, that guy's got to go tell the wife, hey, listen, we've got an opportunity to go to Starkville, Mississippi. Yeah, I know we live in this major metropolitan area, but we're going to go coach in the SEC. I know you got to leave your friends behind. You won't be able to go play tennis anymore, with the girls at the country club, but we're going to go to Starkville, Mississippi. Sometimes that's a tough sell. I love it here. I don't want to live anywhere else. I think it's amazing here. I like to vacation at the beach every now and again or go up to the mountains, but I wouldn't want to live there. I love living here. But for people that have never been here and don't have an experience here, they don't have any relationships here outside of a new employer, sometimes that can be difficult, especially for a first-year coach. And you go back and you look about the Arnett stuff. And Arnett, in many respects, because you had the nucleus back for the most part, you had to go out there and find some guys to kind of supplement where you were maybe deficient. But you go back and think how difficult it was at times last year to put this thing together. And by and large, a lot of the people that we hired were people that we had relationships with at Mississippi State, not necessarily a relationship with Zach Arnett. Arnett didn't have a relationship with Chad Bumpus. Chad Bumpus was coming home. Arnett didn't have a relationship with David Turner. David Turner was one of our guys. And so it was a popular move, and it was a smart move, right? Most of you didn't even know who Brett Dewhurst was last year. And I remember as soon as all this happened, we reported Dewhurst was going to be the safeties coach. People were like, oh, no. Well, guess what? Dewhurst was a safeties coach. But you go back and think about the way the offensive line thing came together, right? Schmidt and Zach Arnett are among the best friends in the world. So that's kind of like a Jeff Lebby hire. You go out and hire somebody with a proven pedigree, a guy you've got a relationship with. Will Friend didn't have a relationship with Zach Arnett. Will Friend knew Brad Peterson. Will Friend knew us. He knows Mississippi. So you start piecing this thing together, and if you look back really in hindsight, most of these coaches last year that Zach Arnett had on staff are people he didn't really know. And that's not to be critical of Zach. I love Zach. I do. But you retain Darcel McBath, right? And you keep Matt Brock, and you keep Eric Mealy. But outside of that, it's a bunch of new dudes that have never worked together, never worked in the same system. And you look back in hindsight and say, you know what, there probably was some some issues with that. Bumpett never worked in Kevin Barbay's offense. And matter of fact, if memory serves me correct, Kevin Barbay was what the last offensive coach hired. Because we went and hired Will Friend, who was our friend, and we went and hired Schmidt, who was Arnett's friend. We brought Bumpus home, who's a Mississippi State legend. We moved Tony Hughes over to coach running backs. So there was a lot of ebb and flow last year, and again, kind of a fragmented staff. And you look at this situation here with Jeff Lebby, other than the retention of Bumpus and Turner, which again makes sense, right? But when you look at the rest of this, everybody has a working relationship with Jeff Lebby. Whether it be a year, 2 years, or more. These are people that understand what Jeff Lebby expects. And so I think in that respect, this staff really has a better chance, even though you're not inheriting the same roster you had last year, a veteran roster. But little did we know, that secondary was not going to come around. I don't know if it's coaching or recruiting or whatever, a combination of all the above. But, things weren't good. They weren't. But I think when you bring in people that already have a working knowledge of your scheme and you are the master of that scheme, you got a better chance of making this thing work. It's true. One of the most difficult things to do in life, I say this all the time when I go somewhere, it's so much easier to get the job done when you don't have to introduce yourself. When people already know who you are and what you're about. Those are the people you want to do business with, and that's what Jeff Lebby's doing business with. So I support the hires. I support the staff. Are there some things that concern me? Absolutely. Absolutely there are. But when you think about how life works, how relationships work within, an organization, you need to have people that kind of already have a working knowledge of each other, or at least what's expected of them. And you go look on this offensive side of the football. I mean, just about everybody over there are guys that have worked with Jeff Lebby before, and some of them multiple times. So a lot of Oklahoma flavor. I'm ready for the staff to get finalized, and it's important that they do so now because we got official visitors coming in this weekend. So we got a lot of guys coming in, getting outfitted for an official issue Mississippi State Adidas pullover or hoodie or whatever, and ready to get to work wearing the maroon and white. Well, that's one of the things that we had talked about in the infancy of the search. We had to have this stuff done. We had to have a staff in place before the portal opened, and for the most part, we did. And we had to have the staff filled out before official visitors came in. And we have, with one exception. So we're on track. We're on pace. I know things don't always move the way you want it to or go the way you expect them to do or expect them to go. But here we are. We got Jeff Lebby hired the weekend of the SEC championship. He had the bulk of his staff ready before the portal opened, even though a lot of that stuff wasn't public yet. And then, here we are. Here we are. And so we're off and running. And now it's important to get this final hire made and have a great recruiting weekend because you only get 2 official visit weekends before the December signing period opens. So, we'll be full bore all weekend. And let me just tell you this, just so you know, because some recruiting writers of the past in this state. I'm not going to be down at Rick's or in the Cotton District or at some fraternity party or nothing like that. I'm not going to be down there giving you guys dance reports or talking about, so-and-so's having a good time. No. I'm not going to go out there and stalk these kids. Not going to do it. And if that's what you want, you probably better spend your money somewhere else because I'm not going to do that. I'm not that I'm afraid to go to a bar and shoot some pool, but I'm certainly not going to be out there in the middle of official visit weekends creeping on these kids. I'm not going to do it. And I'm not going to make up things too and pass it off as insider information like some other people have. So we preview the visit weekend, and we'll cover our sports this weekend, and then we'll have official visit recaps on Sunday. And I'm looking forward to getting this weekend behind us. I think this is the big one. There'll be another big weekend next weekend. It'll be quite as big as this one. And next thing you know, man, it's going to be time to sign some papers. And then things will calm for a good bit. Of course, we'll have transfers that have until the drop ad date to show up. but there'll be a lot fewer of those to cover. And we've done our best to reach out to everybody that's got an offer out of transfer portal from Mississippi State and had some success. But we hadn't gotten everybody. A lot of these college kids are like, I'm in the middle of finals, or I'm finishing this up, or I'm just not going to do interviews until I make a decision. That all happens too. But once you get the staff finalized, and we're almost done there, you get through the December signing period, everybody has a chance to kind of take a breath. And then next thing you know, we're working through these final few transfer portal guys that will enroll for spring classes. And then things will chill for a bit, right? And that needs to happen. I think this fan base needs a chance to exhale. It has been a wild, wild ride at Mississippi State for the last 14 months or so. It really has been. And so hopefully we'll have an opportunity now to, again, like we opened the show with, find a sense of normalcy. All right, let's move ahead to our top 10 list, brought to you as always by closewithblair.com. That's C-L-O-S-E with Blair, B-L-A-I-R. Blair is a mortgage professional. Listen, you can go out there and you can get your car washed wherever you want to. You know, you can go eat, a sandwich wherever you want to. You can have somebody come out there and pressure wash your driveway if you want to. But listen, there's not a lot of variance between the good and the great when it comes to those issues. But when it comes to your mortgage, you need to entrust that in the hands of a true professional, and that's Blair Chandler. Blair's been doing this 22 years, back to back to back, top 1% close ratio in the country. Recently made the move to Priority One Mortgage because that's what happens when you're talented, man. People are always looking to recruit you. Blair's experienced that multiple times in his career because Blair's a closer, and coffee is for closers. If you ever see Blair, you can see that he's constantly drinking a lot of coffee. Those red eyes kind of dead giveaway. But listen, we love Blair, and you will too. Give Blair a call or text today at 601-500-2344. That's 601-500-2344. And just let him know your needs, whether you're getting into a mortgage, rates are beginning to come down, whether you're looking to refinance. I mean, there's a lot of things you can consider now. But to entrust your mortgage into the hands of just some fly-by-night company out there, it's just not good advice. So I'm going to advise you, give Blair an opportunity to serve you. No matter your needs, reach out to him. Whether you're an atypical borrower with non-conforming issues, I don't know. But Blair has seen it all and done it all. And so rather than just kind of go through the phone book or go through Google, trust me. We've had several Boneyard listeners that have had the opportunity to work with Blair and they come away very satisfied. All right, today's top 10 list. So our friend Ryan Purser, Ryan, the front man for the very, very entertaining band out of Central Mississippi, Four-Way Stop, they opened Rock Vegas. Yeah, when we did that show. How cool was that? They opened Rock Vegas. It was great. I was so glad to give those guys an opportunity to play. They put a new single together, and he sent it to me for my listening pleasure. And one of the things that stood out to me is it had a little Alice in Chains vibe to it. And you know how that works? Like you start hearing some things, and you're like, oh, that just reminds me of this song. And then I'm right back into that wormhole, right, of Alice in Chains. And so I thought about, we've done Alice in Chains before. Guys, I'll be honest with you. You know what a big Chris Cornell fan I am. He is my favorite singer-songwriter of all time. But the guy's voice to me that really typified the early 90s, it's not Eddie Vedder and certainly not Kurt Cobain. It's Lane Staley. And of course, Alice in Chains, in many respects, really kind of birthed that Seattle scene on the mainstream. Because they'd gone out with Van Halen. It was great. The Melvins, of course, and Mudhoney, those guys, they were all the front runners of all of this. But Alice in Chains was really the first grunge band to make it. It's true. Soundgarden already had some albums out. And of course, this revisionist history about Nirvana. I'm not going to chase a lot of time. Guys, the guys in Nirvana were going to see Alice in Chains and Soundgarden play before they had a record deal. True story. But I wanted to do something today about Lane, and I thought, Lane Staley, it's one of the saddest stories in the history of rock and roll. I'm not going to go through this all with you, but as you guys know, he met Demery Parrott, who was a model, incredibly beautiful, and she had done some adult magazines and things of that nature. And Lane, of course, was this very troubled soul. And they fell together in many respects and fell in love. And eventually he got her hooked on heroin, and she ultimately died. And he never forgave himself and just wilted away to nothing. They said when he died, he was less than 100 pounds. But it's a tragic tale. I mean, it really is. And there's a book out there called Get Born Again by Adriana Rubio out of Argentina. The family has rejected that because she says that she interviewed Lane about 3 months before he died, even though he had told everybody in the family that he refused to do the interview. He was not going to be a part of it. The family, mom and sisters, everybody thought this would be a great thing for Lane to kind of help pull him out of that depression. And Lane's famous comment to his sister is if she wants to write a book about somebody, tell her to write one about herself. But yet after he died, she allegedly came forth with this, quote, interview, but she would not release the tape even to her own publisher, so people really doubt the veracity of that interview. They said he even repeated some quotes that he had given in earlier interviews and used some of his own song titles and lyrics and things that he said, which made no sense. So if you're looking for a book really about Lane Staley, pick The Angry Chair. That's one I would go with. But we're going to pay tribute today to Lane Staley, and some of the songs here are songs that were written in tribute to Lane. Also some rarities and some things that he collaborated on that maybe you don't know about. So again, we're celebrating Lane Staley. Not a lot of Alice in Chains stuff on this list, just so you know. Number 10, from the band Cold, and you may know them from their hit song on Octane called Stupid Girl. But they had a great song years ago called The Day Seattle Died, and it's about Lane and in some respects Kurt Cobain, and not necessarily a very graphic song, but they're very honest in their portrayal of who those people were. But that's your number 10 song from Cold, The Day Seattle Died. Number 9, this song almost sounds like an Alice in Chains track, and I'm sure that's all by design. The harmonies, the tuning, kind of that haunting tone of voice. But it's from Stained. It's a track simply called Lane. But if you've never heard it before and you put it on, you'll think that Lane Staley is singing on the chorus. And maybe he is. I don't know. Maybe they dug something up. With the computers nowadays, you can watch anybody perform and this hologram and all this kind of stuff. It's crazy how AI has kind of come forward. Number 8. We just celebrated the birthday of Ozzy Osbourne. We did. One of probably the longest standing guitarist in the Ozzy Osbourne experience, Zakk Wylde from Black Label Society, also had a track in tribute to Lane Staley, also called Lane. I think that's off of Music for Hangovers Volume 6 or something like that. But nevertheless, a nice tribute. One final tribute before we get into some things that are really more about Lane Staley and Alice in Chains at its core is number 7 on your list from the band Roadcase Royale. And you say, Steve, who is that? What's Nancy Wilson's side project from Heart? The ladies in Heart were big Alice in Chains fans and big fans of Lane Staley. They did some work with them. And Roadcase Royale released a little bit of a side project album and a track called The Dragon, which is in tribute to Lane Staley. Really tuned down track, almost like a lullaby in some respects. Number 6, it's reported this is the last song that Lane Staley recorded with Alice in Chains. The last thing that he ever did with Alice in Chains, ironically, is a song called Died. It's almost poetic in many respects. And you can find that in the box set, the Best of the Box, or whatever they call that. But it's out there, it's available, and believed to be the last track that he ever sang on with Alice in Chains. But the last song that he ever recorded came as part of a motion picture soundtrack for the movie The Faculty. And this was a supergroup called Class of 99. And it's Lane Staley, Tom Morello from Alice in Chains, Stephen Perkins from Porno for Pyros. There were a couple other people in the band, but it was a super group, and they recorded Another Brick in the Wall Part 2. And so while in many respects it's kind of true to the original, to hear Lane Staley sing that Pink Floyd classic, pretty impressive. Pretty impressive. And Morello does the Rage Against the Machine thing on it. If you've never heard the song, you probably should. It's a very, very interesting take on a classic track. But Lane Staley, again, believed to be the last song he ever recorded. There was another one that's out there from Second Coming called Love Evil. That the song was actually entitled It's Coming After, but I couldn't find that on Spotify or iTunes, so we didn't use it. But if you have that, it was a independent release. What's interesting about that band is that was the original Alice in Chains for the most part. And so there's one track that Lane sings on kind of to help those guys, because once they used to be a hair metal band, contrary to popular belief. It's true. All right, number 4. This is a cover song too, but it's from the tribute to John Lennon. It's recorded by Mad Season. It's John Lennon's I Don't Want to Be a Soldier. And it's absolutely great. It's not just one of those things you look at and say, well, you know, it's complimentary to what Lennon's work was. It's better. And I know some of my Beatle fans are listening like, that's sacrimony, Steve, or that's sacrilege. But I'm going to tell you this, when you hear this live version of I Don't Want to Be a Soldier of Mad Season, you're going to say, you know what, it sounds like an original tune. It's amazing. That's your number 4 track from Mad Season. Again, a super group. Of course, Mike McReady from Pearl Jam was part of this thing. The Mad Season album from start to finish is very, very different than what you know from Lane Staley and Alice in Chains, and worthy of your time and attention if you don't know it. Number 3, pretty interesting track here. When Alice in Chains reunited, they released Black Gives Way to Blue. Of course, Mike Starr, Lane Staley had moved on. It's just Sean Kenny and Jerry Cantrell. And Mike Inez, of course, became the new bass player. Also of Ozzy Osbourne. He was on the No More Tears album. And then they brought in William Duvall to be the singer. And William close enough in some respects that he can pull the range off. But it's just weird to me to hear them perform the classics without Lane. And that's one of the reasons I just can't bring myself to go see them without Lane. And maybe that's weird. But what's interesting is the first concert that Lane Staley reportedly ever attended was an Elton John show. And they said it so inspired him that he's like, that's what I want to do. I want to be a performer. And it's weird, too. Andrew Wood used to say that Blue Moves from Elton John was his favorite album. And he said, let me just say it just to be weird. But it was amazing that Elton John had such an impact on these people that eventually became the pioneers of the grunge scene. And so finally on the exit track is Black Gives Way to Blue on that album. And Elton John plays the piano on that track. How amazing is that? Talk about things coming full circle. Be sure and check that one out. There's the regular version, but the piano mix with Elton John, I think, kind of provides a little bit of a haunting reminder of what we've lost. Number 2, and maybe just because of the fact, again, this is a cover. It's a Bob Dylan track, but again, there's the connection between Lane Staley and Hart, and he sings, he shares vocals on the Bob Dylan cover "Ring Them Bells" on Heart. Heart's album came out in '93, and it's very reminiscent, I guess, of the time that where we are today. And it starts out with Ann with her amazing voice getting the thing started, and then eventually Lane joins in and shares the lead vocals, and it is a very, very haunting track. It really is. To hear him sing in that context is very different than what we've known before. And you can really hear the purity in his voice. But number 1 for me, probably in my estimation, the best song that Lane Staley was ever a part of outside of Alice in Chains is River of Deceit from Mad Season. That was the big hit on that album. So it's not like it's a hot take there. But I can share with you, I guess a lot of it's because of the path of addiction and things of that nature and recovery. We don't win enough. And when you have somebody like Lane Staley that has the resources and the finances to aid in his own destruction, that's what happens. You have a tortured soul that's been through something very traumatic. And went to rehab several times, but he was just one of those people you couldn't reach. So I don't want to get anybody depressed today. I really just want to celebrate the music of Lane Staley despite his tragic ending and so many negative things that happened in his life. But anytime we get a chance to celebrate him, again, who I think is really the voice of grunge, and I think most people that were around during that time would agree, Chris, the best songwriter and best performer, but the voice, to me, the voice that typifies that era is Lane Staley. Hope you enjoyed the list. If you have ideas for the top 10 list, reach out and let us know. Best way to do that is hit up Roy on Twitter at Dogmatic67. Roy does a great job for us. No money, right? Just recognition, sure. And thank Roy for his contributions. You can find Roy on Twitter, again, at Dogmatic67 on Twitter, and find our great list on Spotify. I'm on all forms of social media at Scout Steve R. If you're not following me on Twitter, what are you doing with your life? All right, I'm getting some messages wondering when we're going to open the True Rest Float Therapy Spa here in Starkville. We're very close. The build-out is scheduled to be done late next week. It may take them a few days longer, and then the pods will be here. Yeah, that's a big day. Pod delivery day is a big day. But yeah, we're getting close. You can go ahead and go and order gift cards now. Best way to do that is to find us on Facebook at True Rest Starkville. We're also on Instagram. The wife's doing a great job managing those social media platforms. If you don't do social media, email us directly at robertson@truerest.com, and you can get more information there. Let's also remind you, too, this next segment of the show brought to you by Campus Book Mart, a Starkvillian institution. Campus Book Mart, an absolutely outstanding place to do business. They carry all 6 of my books there. They have signed stock of everything. So while you're perusing their fine selections of Mississippi State merchandise, throw some books in your basket and get that taken care of. You'll be glad you did that. Sure. The thing about it is Mississippi State hoodies are always in style. Mississippi State merch, always in style. No matter who the coaches are, no matter what the sports teams look like, we're proud of Bulldogs. Rep the brand as often as you can. You can get your interlocking MSU gear there as well. It's a limited time only, too. Hopefully we'll bring that logo back full-time. But you don't need to delay in purchasing those items. Go to campusbookmart.net. Use promo code BSR, which stands for Beautiful Steve Robertson. That gets you free shipping on all orders over $75. Any order less than 75 bones, absolutely incomplete. All right, let's talk about official visit weekend. There could be some ebb and flow with this. Just to kind of put that out there for you. Could be some changes, could be some additions, could be some subtractions. We'll see how it goes. But as it stands today, 19 official visitors expected, and we will look to confirm anybody else as the day goes forward. One of the big visitors this weekend is Daniel Hill of Meridian. Now, this is a recruitment that's been very interesting to follow. Daniel, of course, a Bulldog legacy, but for a while it appeared that State was somewhat hemmed up in this thing and not really expected to be a factor, even though State made the Final Six. He's taken visits to Alabama, South Carolina, and Tennessee, and is expected to visit Mississippi State this weekend. Once he gets on campus, we'll be happy to know, for sure. But Daniel Hill is a guy that is being recruited as an athlete. Some people think he'd make a fantastic linebacker. I've heard he would really like to have the ball in his hands. Many of the schools recruiting him on the defensive side of the football. I think Mississippi State would give him the opportunity to play running back, and then we'll kind of go from there. But a very explosive player that has ties to Mississippi State. Going to be on campus. Quarterback Michael Van Buren out of Baltimore, Maryland, a former Oregon commitment. I understand Jeff Lebby has done a good job recruiting him, and he'll take an official visit to Mississippi State this weekend. Not the biggest guy, but he's right at 6 feet, 185 pound, big arms for him. This is a guy that can really sling it. We're going to need a quarterback that can stretch the field vertically. Another one of the undeclared prospects on campus this weekend. J.J. Harrell has been true Maroon to Mississippi State. When he first announced for the Bulldogs, there were a lot of people on the Ole Miss side of things that, hey, we'll flip him late. that really hasn't been the case. He has done a really good job continuing to carry the Mississippi State message to other recruits. He's out there working on Conan Daniels. There was discussion that he may be a part of things this weekend. As of now, he's not expected to visit. The Bulldogs will try to get him in next week, but that does appear to be kind of an exercise in futility. But JJ doing his part to help. Now, JJ's running mate, Stonka Burnside, decommitted from Mississippi State some time ago. However, Stonka's expected to be on campus this weekend with most of the Mississippi State commitments. And he is going to announce his decision on January 3rd. We do expect him to sign with his school of choice in December. He has announced the final two of Mississippi State and Ole Miss. We're excited about him. I do believe that he will ultimately sign with Mississippi State. Got to get to work on some things, but we're optimistic that he is going to be a Bulldog when it's all said and done. The Defensive Player of the Year for his classification in Mississippi is Terrence Hibbler out of Holmes County Central. Had a chance to watch him play earlier this year against Gentry, Indianola Gentry, and kind of took him a while to kind of get going, but once he got going, he was great. Big numbers this year. Not selected to the Mississippi-Alabama All-Star game, and we'll be down there next week to cover practice, a couple practice sessions down there. And while Hibbler won't be a part of that, he will be part of the All-American Bowl. That he'll be making the trip to San Antonio. So he'll be unavailable to visit anyone next week. That game's going to be played, I believe, on Monday, a week from this coming Monday. And so he'll visit Mississippi State this week. He is expected to sign in December without any fanfare. Mario Craver is a 4-star wide receiver from Clay Chalkville High School over in Pinson, Alabama. Now he is going to play in the state championship game tonight against Saraland, and so he will be a late arrival, probably be a Saturday arrival. Give him a chance to celebrate with his teammates should they win the state championship. But this is a guy that was expected to commit to Mississippi State prior to Zach Arnett getting fired. He was on track to do it. Matter of fact, we were expecting a commitment the Monday that they did fire Zach Arnett. But a 4-star wide receiver out of Alabama, I think actually this offensive system lends itself more to his skill set than the previous one did. But he'll be on campus this weekend at some point, and again, a later arrival. Jimothy Lewis, at one time was considered the top offensive tackle in the country out of IMG, originally from the Madison area. Kind of a surprise commitment to Mississippi State. He's remained true Maroon through the process. We'll see what happens next weekend. But we do feel good about where things stand with him. We look forward to talking to him on Sunday once his official visit is complete. But that's a very, very important commitment for Mississippi State. Tight end prospect Ja'Cory Whited. I had a chance to go see him out at McAdory High School earlier this year in a game that they won. He had a big touchdown catch in that game. Not a lot of guys his size have the dexterity that he does. You see a lot of guys that are really big and filled out in high school that carry this level of stiffness. Now, they'll trim him up a little bit, but this is a true tight end prospect. And, again, a guy that his mom was very elated that he chose Mississippi State, not too far from home. They can be a part of the experience, and eager to hear what he has to say at the conclusion of his visit. Xavier Gayton out of Brookhaven, also going to be in town. Always wanted to play at Mississippi State. His coach told me during the summer workouts he would ride his horse to campus at Brookhaven High School and go through summer workouts with his horse. If there was ever a kid better suited for Mississippi State, I don't know who it would be. Gayton, a huge year this year at running back for the Panthers. And they got off to a slow start, but he really got going, and the team kind of followed his lead. Spoke to Hines Community College linebacker Brandon Jennings earlier this week. He is going to be on campus and, again, appears to be ready to go. He has been very impressed with his conversations with Jeff Lebby. Brandon Jennings, an ultra-productive linebacker, led Hines Community College in tackles this year, and with Buki Watson and Jed Johnson, Deshaun Page, all moving on, State has some needs for linebackers immediately. San Francisco McGee, I have loved this kid's game since the very beginning, and not just because his name is San Francisco. This kid can really play, great body control, he can elevate, plays well outside the numbers. There are so many guys out there that can't really take ownership of the football. He is one of those guys that has really elite ball skills. A former Ole Miss commitment, he decommitted from the Rebels last weekend. Of course, they'll call it a drop. It wasn't. But Mississippi State's always kind of been in this guy's heart. We expect him to announce for the Bulldogs this weekend, if not shortly thereafter. Mississippi State commitment Johnny Daniels, the second leading ground gainer in the NJCAA this year, also set to visit, a product of Crystal Springs, Mississippi. A guy that has a lot of respect around the junior college ranks. You talk to players, you talk to coaches, they'll tell you, don't let his 5'10 size fool you. He plays much bigger. One of the clips that I thought was amazing on his film is he gets outside there and there's a linebacker, and he basically tells the linebacker to bring it, and he runs through the guy. I like guys that play with an edge. TJ Lockhart, big weekend for him last week. He and Fred Clark, both of Winona, will be on campus this weekend. Both committed to Mississippi State. Both earned all-state honors last week and then win the first ever state championship in Winona high school history. TJ's the guy that told me he was never worried even through the coaching change because he knew where he wanted to go regardless of who the coach is. He is projected to play an offensive guard position in the new scheme. He's certainly open to that. Fred Clark, a very ultra-productive linebacker for Winona this year, has also said, you know what, I'm good. After the coaching change, Auburn and some others tried to kind of test the resolve of his commitment. I think he's undervalued at an 85. I've done my best to try to fix that, but, we'll see how things go. It's not going to in any way impact who he is as a player once he gets to Mississippi State. All right, Samir Camacho is a new name to the Bulldog recruiting radar, also expected to play offensive guard out of Cy Falls High School in Houston, Texas. He is a guy that has a relationship with new Bulldog tight ends coach John Cooper. Cooper, of course, played at Oklahoma and then spent last year at North Texas. So this is one of those things, hey, one of the first phone calls I make are to you. Samir is a guy that visited Texas State last weekend, tentatively expected to visit TCU next weekend. However, he says that John Cooper is the closest relationship that he has in his recruitment. True Maroon Bulldog Luke Work, again, another guy that was going to come to Mississippi State regardless of the coaching change, never wavered. I mean, really the whole situation with Luke was that he was initially offered by Mason Miller under Mike Leach. Then there is that change, right? And so then Will Friend comes in, they honor the offer, they get him to commit the night of Big Dog Camp, and then there's another coaching change. And now John Cooper and Coach Cody Kennedy, have elected, hey, we're going to stick with this. So this is now 3 offensive line coaches that have been involved in Luke Work's recruitment to Mississippi State. Luke, again, has recruited some for State. Also a guy that's headed out to the All-American game with Terrence Sibler. A new addition to the list is Q Tillman. Q Tillman is an athlete out of West Point. A lot of people will tell you he is one of the secrets behind their success. State has talked to him about playing the H-back position. He's a guy you can move around, much bigger kid, 6'2", 220, but carries that weight really well. When he's padded up, he really looks like a load out there. So he'll be a part of your visit weekend. Now, Justin Ball, the tight end from Vanderbilt, also expected to be here. I had a chance to talk to him last night. We'll talk to him again on Sunday. He is a guy that has done some pretty cool things so far. Not a ton of pass catches to his credit, but he is a guy that can make things happen. Justin Ball, a guy that also very close to Mike Wright. So I'm sure Mike Wright will be a big part of his visit weekend. And then there's Ethan Miner. Not the biggest guy at center, but a guy that's been ultra productive in his college career, especially last year. And again, a great relationship with John Cooper. And the more you hear about John Cooper from recruits, the better you feel about that hire. But Ethan's a guy that's married already. He's got 4 dogs. Had a chance to interview him yesterday, and it'll be a huge surprise if he's not a Bulldog when it's all said and done. And you think about State's immediate needs at center, and this makes perfect sense. Cole Smith has exhausted his eligibility. Stephen Lasoya is in the portal. I'm hearing that Baylor may end up offering him. Right? If that makes sense to you? Yeah. So Stephen Lasoya, possibility that he's back, but a possibility that he's not. He's in the portal and kind of seeing what his options are. The thing that I would say about guys that go in the portal, I don't ever blame people for trying to better themselves. But I think it's a real gamble if you think I'm going to go in the portal and find out what's available to me, and if I'm not happy, then I'll pull out and stay at Mississippi State. I don't know that I would take that gamble with a brand new coaching staff. You don't have a relationship with these guys. They're not going to be recruiting you to stay. They're going to be recruiting your replacement to come in because they don't know if they can trust you. And that's an important aspect of all this thing. But, as it stands today, right now, it's 19 visitors. And again, there's a couple other names out there that we might bring in. And, of course, they've got to get everything on file before they come today. So it's tough to make arrangements for all that stuff at the last minute. And there is, again, another weekend. So big weekend. A lot of names on campus that could make a difference in this football program. And it's important to understand, too, a lot of these kids in Mississippi, the ones that are going to be playing the Mississippi-Alabama All-Star game next weekend, these are their only opportunities to visit. The Mississippi-Alabama All-Stars will report to Camp Shelby on Tuesday. Yeah, so they're going to get there on Tuesday, and then the game is on Saturday. Well, the dead period begins on Monday. So in the event they do take a day trip somewhere, it's not going to be like the big weekend they're going to have this weekend. The way the calendar is set up is kind of funky right now, which is another reason why you begin to think about guys that are visiting this late in the process are guys that are very serious about your football program. So if you're Stonka Burnside, when are you going to visit Ole Miss? That's interesting to discover, right? Does he do it Monday? Does he do it Sunday? You know, a few years ago after Mississippi-Alabama All-Star game, there were a lot of people connected to the Mississippi-Alabama All-Star game were trying to get Cam Akers up to Ole Miss that Sunday. Tried to get Jaheim Otis up there. You know, there's a lot that goes on. So it's never one of those situations you just kind of assume things are over. But it is interesting the way the calendar sets up that, like your guys from East Mississippi Community College, like Mississippi State recruiting a handful of those guys that are expected now to visit next weekend because of the fact that they are playing for a national championship on Wednesday. Right? So they're not going to be visiting anywhere this weekend because of the fact they're making preparations to go play for a national title. So they'll just have the one weekend to visit, and that's going to be Mississippi State. And, of course, you've got a couple guys committed, Tyler Woodard, of course, and Ashawn Shepard, and then there's Marcus Ross. You hope to get him in next week. Also, Mississippi State extended an offer just last night. Coach Barnes, right to work. The first phone call he makes to a recruit is to Keaton Thomas, linebacker from Northeast Mississippi Community College. He is originally a product of Jacksonville, Florida. Offered yesterday. Couldn't get him in this weekend. I believe he's headed to Baylor this weekend, and then he'll be at Mississippi State next weekend. So, again, I don't expect, around 20 guys next week, but I think it's going to be another interesting week. And there's some guys, of course, that are not on this week's visit list, like Matt Mayfield is not on the list. Tyler Carter is not on the list. So that's something that we'll monitor here in the days ahead. And I would say, don't be surprised at anything there. Now, one of the things initially you start thinking is sometimes you want to split your commitments to come in one weekend to have them help recruit the non-committed and then have the other half come in. Sylvester Kroom and Dan Mullen both did some of that from time to time. You like to have some guys out there that will be a part of it. Of course, there'll also be some guys next weekend that will take unofficial visits back to Mississippi State because they've got friends here. They can have opportunities to stay. Now, Jaquan Bolden was expected to visit this weekend, but tragically that family lost an aunt and an uncle, and that funeral was this weekend. So Bolden will visit nowhere this week and take a midweek visit to Mississippi State beginning on Wednesday, December the 13th. In addition to that, there is some discussion that Dylan Gabriel, Oklahoma quarterback Dylan Gabriel, will be at Mississippi State early next week, Monday or Tuesday. I'm hearing more likely on Monday. Now, you may recall the day that he went into portal, within minutes, people were saying, well, he's going to Oregon. I was told that day, and I continue to hear that he is going to take a couple of visits before he makes a decision. At the very least, he'll come see Jeff Lebby and see what Jeff Lebby's got planned here at Mississippi State. He's expected to be at Oregon this weekend. And he will come to Mississippi State on Monday, and then the staff will have the opportunity to focus solely on him. You'll have some guys on the road, but Jeff Lebby and the offensive staff can be around on Monday to ensure that they can give him the attention that he deserves. And, of course, there's a relationship there. I mean, Dylan Gabriel played at Central Florida for Jeff Lebby and played at Oklahoma for Jeff Lebby. So it's not like a situation where we're just kind of walking into this thing blind. I mean, these are people that understand the concepts and the lingo because they've spoken the same language before at multiple locations. So I'm not ready to call Dillon Gabriel to Mississippi State, but I do think Mississippi State is in a very good position with him. And, of course, there's Kyle McCord out of Ohio State. I'm told that he is expected to visit Mississippi State at some point next week. I haven't confirmed the dates yet, but that's a big-time prospect. And of course, there's a lot of people out there that are talking about Mississippi State in connection with some other guys. State is going to sign a portal quarterback. And people say, well, what does that mean for Chris Parson? Well, it means that Chris Parson gets a chance to learn the system for a year and then play some when he needs to. There are a lot of people out there that maybe have kind of escalated the situation with Chris, and maybe a little bit unfair to him. This is a guy that's got to learn. This is a guy that's got a big arm. He's ultra talented, and we do expect big things from him. But he's got to go through spring. I mean, you got to think our coaching staff doesn't know him. And so you got to go out and get a stopgap guy, and you've got to go out and get a high school guy. Now, there's been some discussion that State may take 2 quarterbacks out of the portal and may the best man win. I don't think you can do that with Dillon Gabriel, unless you are even McCord for that matter. I think they've got to know up front, hey, this is a chance for me to come in here and be the guy. Now, anybody else that sees a portal quarterback worth his salt, that sees Dillon Gabriel or McCord go to Mississippi State, they're going to think I need to go somewhere else because I want to play. I want to go somewhere and hold a clipboard or signal in plays. And you go out and get a younger guy, too, to kind of balance the depth chart. That's an important aspect of all this stuff, too. I mean, Josh Flowers is no longer a member of your class, and so you don't want to get too top-heavy. You got to have some balance and allow some guys to come along and develop so you're not so reliant on a portal moving forward when it comes to quarterbacks. But that's where things sit today. And everything that we did this week, we'll do again next week. It's a different cast of characters. But we'll be working through the official visit recaps on Sunday. We'll do that over genespage.com. We typically get everybody, but sometimes it may take us a day or two. But we're going to do all we can to get as many of those interviews up on Sunday and certainly by Monday. But the ones of the undeclared prospects are the ones of the greater sense of urgency, right? So we're going to do our best to get that information out to you as quick as we can on Sunday. But we're excited about it. It's a lot of work, but it's a lot of fun. And I know it's fun for you all. And, one of the things one of the first things that we try to do is confirm if we're any new commitments on Sunday. And typically those commitments are made on Sunday as part of the exit interview. So as soon as we get that, even if we don't get the player on the phone right away, we'll do our best to share that with you. And more times than not these days, young people are taking control of their own announcement, and they'll get a graphic together and they'll tweet that out, and then that's it, and then we'll get some reaction. But yeah, we do expect there to be some action. I think San Francisco McGee will commit to Mississippi State on Sunday. I think that's going to happen. We'll see what happens with Michael Van Buren, but I do think you'll add some new commitments. I think this Ethan Miner thing, the center from North Texas, I think that's just a matter of time because of the relationship with Cooper. And he mentioned too the fact that he'll be at North Texas, he's like 10 and a half hours away from his in-laws. He will be 5 hours or 5.5 hours away this go-around. So that's a factor. He's also expected to visit Arkansas next week, but that may not happen. That may not happen at all. And so those are things to watch. But next week, I think there'll be a lot more transfer guys. And, of course, those guys, too, the official visits for transfer guys, it's a little more interesting because of the fact that they have longer. Like they don't sign a national letter of intent in December. And that'll be the discussion on the Facebook groups. Let's go ahead and prepare you. So I need your help to educate those that don't listen to the show or read the website. When we get through the December signing period and we don't have a bunch of transfers sign because they don't have to sign, that's going to be the discussion in the Facebook group. So like, hey, we've had all these guys leave. Like just yesterday, DeCarlos Nicholson announced he was going in the portal, and that's same thing for Corey Ellington. We've been hearing for a while Corey Ellington was the guy that was looking to leave, but that's what people know is the declarations from guys that are leaving. And then it's like, why don't we have anybody? Well, the portal just opened on Monday. But as we get into December, people need to understand that what closes out the recruitment of a transfer prospect is his enrollment at Mississippi State. And it's so funny, too. I love the revisionist history that some people have. Guys, we had to fight Miami off on Marcus Banks until the day he left Texas to come to Mississippi State. He was committed to us, but they continued to work behind the scenes to try to get him to come to Miami instead of Mississippi State. That's a true story. And anybody that suggests otherwise is just poorly sourced on the topic. And so this is one of those situations. It's not like college baseball where you make a decision, everybody leaves you alone. When you're a transfer guy, it just shows you who you got to beat. So that's an important aspect of things. There will not be transfers that sign in December. They may announce, but they can't sign in December. That's not part of the process. And there are a lot of people that are ignorant of the process, and I don't mean that negatively. There is people that don't understand. And yet those are the people that they'll just start bashing Mississippi State. Well, we've had, 9 guys leave in the portal, but we haven't signed anybody. Well, those guys hadn't signed either. So I just say that to prepare you for that, because that's going to be the discussion. And you're going to be well ahead of the curve because you'll be able to respond to their nonsensical comment and say, well, yeah, it's because they don't sign in December. They just simply enroll in January. So that's a part of it. But understand, too, that we have had to fight some major battles down the stretch for transfer guys, even after they've declared for Mississippi State. So bear that in mind as we kind of move forward. All right, final segment of the show brought to you by the Stark Vegas Clubhouse. If you're looking to bring a big group to Starkville, look no further than the Stark Vegas Clubhouse. Just Google Stark Vegas Clubhouse. It comes right up. You can go to their Facebook page and you can look through the pictures of that fine property. 5 bedrooms, man. Great size common areas. You also have the wet bar there. That great fire pit outside where you can just kind of sit and recreate after a long day's work or a good night at the ballpark, right? Just 5 minutes from campus. Listen, if you're bringing your family to town, instead of getting 5 hotel rooms or 4 hotel rooms or whatever you want to do and spend more money than you should invest in a weekend or a week at the Stark Vegas Clubhouse. I have toured the property. It is absolutely amazing. We're going to use it, too, the next time all of our kids come to town because we want everybody under one roof. That way, the bride can make some cinnamon rolls for breakfast for everybody. Have those grandkids come out there all sleepy-eyed in their pajamas, and grandmama or Dee Dee, we call her Dee Dee, she can take care of them, right? It's great. Again, book through the Evolve website. Google Stark Vegas Clubhouse, but book through the Evolve website. We'll save you a little money. Use promo code BSR10. That gets you 10% off your stay. You never knew this by listening to the show. You could be educated, informed, and entertained, but also save a little money. Yeah, we also do that for you, too, whenever we can. Thanks for being a loyal Boneyard listener. And again, book through the Evolve website, Stark Vegas Clubhouse, promo code BSR10. All right, a couple more things we want to talk about before we get out of here. Chris Jans and the Bulldogs back in action tomorrow morning. That's a 10:30 tip. So as soon as you sleep in, get up, get a cup of coffee, turn the ball game on. Bulldogs really, really, really need a win. Tough week last week. Still not over. That loss to Southern, it just absolutely blows my mind. But this Tulane team is no joke, guys. They're 6-1. We can't just show up and win. Tulane knocked off Nichols earlier this year, 91-81, and then Northwestern State 88-71. A lot of Louisiana flavor in that early part of the schedule. They played in the SoCal Challenge and took down Sacramento State 92-57. Bradley got them 80-77 for their long loss on the year, and they nipped Cal 84-81. Just last week, they blew out Prairie View A&M 98-77 and won at Fordham up in New York, 89-81. And they will take on your Bulldogs again Saturday morning, 10:30 tip, Stark Vegas time. Let's take a quick look inside the numbers here, just so you kind of know what to be aware of. We can't ill afford to overlook anybody. But Max Bowman is a guy that has done some pretty good things for them at times as a reserve. But by and large, he has just been kind of a mop-up guy. But when you begin to look at these numbers here, Colby King, Cyan James, Colin Holloway have all been regular starters. Jalen Forbes also in the mix there. Looking at their season statistics here, pretty interesting dynamic here. They have 5 players averaging double figures or more. So, double figures or more. 5 guys in double figures. Nobody's averaging triple digits, Steve. But it is very much a starting 5 that can score. It is going to be a high-scoring game more times than not. Mississippi State plays some defense. It's going to be a real challenge for us. There's no doubt about that. Colby King averaging 14.7 points a game. Cyan James, 15. Colin Holloway, 14.3. Jalen Forbes, 11.7. But leading scorer, Kevin Cross, 19.5. Yeah, Max Bowman hadn't been the factor. I thought. I look a little bit closer at my notes here. But Colby King, also a guy that would get out and make you pay on the perimeter. 17 steals. Defensively, Cyan James with 13. 3-point shooting, Cyan James, 52%. Kevin Cross, 54%. So we're going to have to get out and defend the perimeter. These guys can play. There's no question about it. This is a two-lane team that has had some success early, and you can talk about quality of competition, but they've been able to go on the road and put some points on the board. So, yeah, it's a neutral site game, but they're pretty much abreast of that. They can handle that. We got to play. Simple as that. And they have been very good in the first half, but even better in the second half, scoring 50 more points in the second half than they have in the first. And consistently giving up about the same amount in the first and second half defensively. But they're a team that can stretch you defensively and make you defend the whole court. So we're not going to be able to just sag on one guy because of the fact these guys can get out and go. 88 points a game. That's what this team is averaging. So anybody expecting this to turn on a game tomorrow and say, okay, we'll be okay. Guys, we're going to have to bring a great effort to win this ball game. The women are back in action on Monday. We'll talk a little bit about that game against Kennesaw State then. I wanted to spend the last few minutes we have here together really in tribute to everybody involved with the Ron Polk Ring of Honor. Now, it is just a 3-member class this year, but there is one member of this class that I'm even more excited about than the rest. All of them very worthy. You've seen the great job that the university did with the big reveal as Bobby Reed makes it into the Ring of Honor. And he said himself, I've been waiting on this call for a long time. I finally got it. There were a lot of people involved in that 89-90 run with Mississippi State that were really big advocates for Bobby Reed. Guys, he was as dominant as anybody in the Southeastern Conference. There's no question about that. I mean, just a guy that just did an absolutely phenomenal job for us from 88 to 90. Led the NCAA in earned run average at 1.09 during the 88 season. How about that? Up until recently, he held the state record for consecutive scoreless innings at 25 1/3. Had 22 starts, led it all 3 seasons. He was a freshman All-American in 88. Second team All-SEC selection in both 88 and 90. How he didn't get first team in 90, I'll never fully appreciate. But was drafted by the Texas Rangers in the 3rd round once his time at Mississippi State was done. Never made it to the show, but a huge part of our Bulldog history. Jim Ellis, the voice of the Bulldogs going in this year. This needed to happen, and I'm glad this happens. Jim is at the end of his career, but at the same time, I'm so glad that we're able to recognize him while he's still active in his service. Now, the name, again, I'm absolutely in favor of both of these guys going in, but Buddy Meyer is going in, and one of the things that I have tried to do in recent years is to shine the light on some of these legacy guys that they're dead and gone. Most of our fans today have no clue who they are. Buddy Meyer, the only Mississippi State baseball alum that has more years of Major League service than Buddy Meyer, is a guy named Rafael Palmeiro. Yeah, more years than Will Clark, more years than Bobby Thigpen, more years than Jeff Brantley, more years than Mitch Moreland. It's incredible. And a lot of our people don't, and that's what happens. That's one of the reasons I love writing these books, is to pay tribute to some of these players that maybe generations have forgotten. Because we get caught up in recency bias. We do. We all do it. And not to mention, we've got to take care of some of these legacy guys. We always have like one a year. I'm still a proponent. Nobody's listening to me, but I'm still a proponent. Let's do a legacy class and kind of get caught up. We still got to get William Jennings. We still got to get Willie Mitchell in there. There's a handful of guys that I could certainly stand on a table and defend. But Buddy was on my list. I had a half dozen names that I really, really wanted. And I had somebody ask me earlier this year, who's the one guy you'd have to have? And I said, well, I would start William Jennings, but if I couldn't get Jennings, I'd get Buddy Meyer. And we got Buddy Meyer in, kids. We did. Buddy Meyer, and I'll tell you, I probably know more about his story than the university does. Buddy Meyer from Jones County, Mississippi. He's from Eville. He played at Mississippi State under professional contract. That's how good he was. There was no amateurism certification back there. There was no collective bargaining agreement. But his mother was very much into education. I believe she was a school teacher. And she wanted him to get his education before he went and played pro ball. So he signed a pro contract with the Senators and then played at Mississippi State. That's how good he was. Played second, short, and third. Went on to the major leagues, and the Senators and the Yankees with Lou Gehrig and Babe Ruth had these legendary rivalry games. Buddy was a big part of that. Buddy was the American League batting champion. One year he was the American League stolen base champion. Buddy Meyer belongs in the Major League Baseball Hall of Fame. It's not going to get there. And there are some reasons behind it, I think. Buddy was also a guy that was raised in a Jewish family. And if you've seen the movie 42, and I won't look up the name, but you remember the coach that gave so much drama in that movie. I mean, it's incredible to think about that. That there was the things that took place, and I love the movie. If you don't know, it's the Jackie Robinson story. But the same coach that gave Jackie so much trouble with all of the racial epitaphs, when he was a player, Buddy Meyer was the subject of his disdain when it came to anti-Semitism. And so there was this big brouhaha that broke out, and he had spiked Buddy Meyer in the first game of a doubleheader, and Buddy had kind of let the media know he better not do it again. Well, sure enough, he's at first base, and there's a ground ball, it's a double play ball, and Meyer even touches the bag at second and goes into the grass. Well, this guy swerves inside and spikes Meyer, and a fight breaks out, and Meyer beat him to death, nearly. Meyer wins the fight. He gets ejected from the ball game. The brawl went all the way up into the stands. And when it was all over with, Buddy Meyer walked off to a standing ovation as the Washington Senators crowd rose in respect for him standing up for himself. And not to mention the fact they hated the New York Yankees. But a phenomenal big league player, a phenomenal college player, believed to have hit the first grand slam in school history to beat Ole Miss. This guy's a dude, man. Played for us 1922 to 1924 and then began his professional career. And again, the only Bulldog with more years of Major League service is Rafael Palmeiro. Played until 1941, and according to the numbers here, 7,038 at-bats, was a career 303 hitter, had an on-base percentage of .389, hit 38 home runs, but he was mainly known as being an elite defender. He was a two-time All-Star in 35 and 37, and again, the American League stolen base champion in 1928. Won the batting crown in 35. Guys, think about this. He played 17 years of Major League Baseball and hit over 309 times. And so, thank you to Saunders Ramsey and Ron Polk and Joe Deere and everybody involved with the Ron Polk Ring of Honor. Buddy Meyer deserves to be a part of this, and I'm so incredibly grateful that these folks are willing to listen about some of these legacy players. And we have such a proud baseball history. As I've shared many times, there's so many people that think we began playing baseball in 1985. We actually began in 1885. And there are a lot of those guys out there that laid the foundation for what we enjoy today. And it's so amazing to see Mississippi State honor their legacies. It's so incredibly important. We have so much to be proud of. And I can only begin to imagine the descendants of Buddy Meyer attending that ceremony in the Ackerson Plaza to see Buddy Meyer finally recognized at the university that he loved and played for so diligently. It is such a wonderful thing to see this happen. And I'm just happy to be a small part of it. And ultimately, it's not my decision. All I do is say, I'll stand on a table for these guys and say, hey, these guys need to be in. But I think, again, what a great job, what a worthy inclusion into the Ron Polk Ring of Honor. And I'll be honest with you, there have been so many players that have been inducted. This one means a little more to me. I'm just going to be honest about it. It does. Because, again, it's a chance for us to celebrate our Bulldog past. It is the Ron Polk Ring of Honor, so primarily most of those players are going to be guys that played for Ron Polk or played more recently. But I'm glad that there is room in that Ring of Honor for a guy like Buddy Meyer. That was an electric player that's, celebrated at Mississippi State. In addition to that, was a guy that spent a lot of time playing pro ball. It's amazing to think about. And Buddy was a guy, too, that he played for a guy, named Duty Noble. Yeah, just think about that for a second. He was the starting shortstop for 3 years under Duty Noble. And, again, this is Bulldog royalty. This is absolutely Bulldog royalty, and I'm so incredibly grateful that Mississippi State is honoring Buddy Meyer. And I look forward in the years to come that we can have these same conversations about Willie Mitchell and William Jennings and a few other people. But I think it's, again, I'm nosy, right? I'm the kind of guy, I love Mississippi State, and I like to kind of know what's happened behind the scenes before I was born. And that's one of the reasons that I've written Starkville and Alpha Dogs, and we'll do another book like that eventually. But it's important to recognize our history. And Buddy Meyer is a big part of our Bulldog baseball history, and we should always celebrate those players. We should. And I know you agree. And the thing that excites me the most is there are many people now that are really learning of Buddy Meyer the first time, and they're like, hey, who is this? And I'm so grateful that his story will be told now to new generations. As a matter of fact, we're going to include some comments about Buddy Meyer in the upcoming documentary, in the biography of Duty Noble called The Dude. That's coming up next year. And so Buddy Meyer will be a part of that. And it makes me happy that I can include in that book that Buddy Meyer was recognized as a Ron Polk Ring of Honor inductee in 2024. Pretty amazing stuff. All right, let's get ready to get out of here. Again, thanks so much for your support. We've had a big few days over at genespage.com. It's a busy stretch for us. And for the next couple of weeks, we're going to be running wide open as we get through December signing day. And then things will calm a little bit. But let me also remind you, too, listen, I get it. Some people think the bloom is off the rose a little bit for Mississippi State men's basketball. I still believe in this team. And you go get a win tomorrow against a surging, high-scoring Tulane team, I think you can start feeling good about the team again. But let's not bail, okay? Let's not just, things aren't going the way that I wanted to, so I'm going to tune out. This team needs your support. If you can get to Humphrey Coliseum, you should. I love what we've done with the concourse. It looks a lot better. Is it maybe everything we wanted? No, it's not. But it is so much better than it was. And I love walking around there and kind of seeing these things out there, us kind of recognizing some history, but also, too, giving our players today and in the future the opportunity to do some amazing things right here in Starkville. All right, keep up with us over at Gene's Page throughout the weekend as we cover these official visits. And, of course, Justin Frommer will be heading over to Atlanta today to cover that ball game against Tulane, so we'll have full coverage of that game as well. No matter what you're doing this weekend, I wish you the best. It is a payday for you today, more likely than not. And so I hope you get out and do some things that bring you and your family joy. And again, thanks so much for everybody that supported the new book. It's pretty amazing, too, that I got a message earlier from my friend Clay Edwards that Ashley Jones from the Swamp People on the History Channel has read the book or is reading the book and is very excited about the book. And she made a nice post on Facebook. Those are things I never expect to happen. But yeah, when the bottom falls, the response has been overwhelming, and I'm very grateful to each and every one of you that's bought the book. I've had so many people that have messaged me that the book has helped them already. Probably one of the most emotional parts of all of this is I had a guy that asked me to sign his book for his son that he lost to addiction. And that really drove it home to me how important it was to write this book. And guys, if I can make it 2 more days, I'll be 32 years clean and sober. And again, I'm not special. I'm just kind of stubborn in the right way. So if you need help, you need prayer, you need encouragement or whatever, if you're battling through this, you feel free to reach out to me. I'll always respond. I may not be as timely as I'd like to be. But I remember a time in my life when I just needed somebody to talk to or needed somebody to listen and understand and read what I had to say. And that's really the purpose of writing this book is it's not about praising me. It's about praising recovery. Because I was a hopeless drug addict, and now here you are listening to me talk about my favorite team, our favorite team, and talking about, advocating for Buddy Meyer to be in the Ring of Honor. I didn't even know who Buddy Meyer was back then, and now I've become one of his biggest fans, and so incredibly overjoyed that he's going in. But again, that's just proof positive that you can change your life. You can. You're not a passenger. You're the pilot. That's important to understand. And that was a big concept for me in the beginning. It's like I just thought these things were happening to me. I didn't realize I was the one driving the bus. And so no matter what you're going through, it may not be addiction, it may not be alcoholism, it may be depression. There's so much of that you're in charge of. And it ends when you're ready. And so let me encourage you to do that. But until next time, let's all live our lives in a way we make more friends than enemies, and people can see a difference in the way we live.